You're listening in on an animated discussion about Batman the Animated Series with two experts in their fields. I'm Joshua Unruh, superhero scholar.
And I'm Caleb Masters, your friendly neighborhood film critic extraordinaire from thecinemetropolis.com. And today's episode is Season 1, Episode 51 of Batman the Animated Series, The Man Who Killed Batman. Batman can't be killed, though, Joshua. I don't understand.
That's right. I mean, it says it right on the very first page of Batman R.I.P. Batman and Robin can never die.
It's impossible. Yeah, never.
Yeah. No, but we do get a glimpse of how things might go off the rails if he were to perish.
Which is what makes this episode so freaking brilliant.
It really is.
Man.
And we are back full effect with the title cards.
Oh, A+ title card.
A++ title card.
Love it. Man with big eyes standing in the shadows against with an ominous organ playing and the title card. Oh, everything about this episode right
big
there.
Big cartoonish eyes, obviously just comically overwhelmed. And even the typeset reinforces that because the actual words that spell out the title of the episode are so big and just hanging over him like the sword of Damocles. Tells me exactly what the episode is going to be about without giving anything away.
Yeah, no, that I agree. It captures the tone and the feeling. And by the way, this episode kicks off with the classic, what do they call it? The purple prose. It was a dark and stormy night because literally the first thing is pow, pow. That's right. And then it's raining and like it's I've got all the big shadows and everything. I was like, wow, this is some purple prose stuff, man.
It is, but it's not just, I mean, you could do that in a Batman story and it would be fine. Like the original Gothic superhero, right? You could do it and it would be fine. But in this case, it's for Sid.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just nature itself is against you, Sid.
Exactly. Well, no, it's perfect because I think he is the POV character in this episode, so that's why it works so well, because for him, it's the worst day of his life.
Absolutely,
and of course, it's like the lightning and rain is trying to keep him from getting to Rupert Thorne. It's beautiful. I love it. Joshua, I do have to ask you a question, though. I know you generally hate flashbacks and framing devices. So what did you think about it in this episode?
So it's worth saying that the reason I usually hate flashbacks is that they have nothing to do with the present narrative. That's the problem with the flashbacks. Not their existence, is that they are usually used by less sure writers to fill in backstory or to give exposition. It's a more interesting way to give exposition, except it's not really. You're just derailing your A-plot. The reason I appreciate the flashbacks in this episode so much is because they directly affect the A-plot, right? Like the A-plot and them go hand in hand. They are not separate monsters.
It adds context to the A-plot. So I know that's normally you have a pet peeve where when the story starts in the middle of something, which is exactly what this episode does. But in this case, you think it works.
I do think it works. And the reason it works is it's not a cheap device, because that's another one. The fractured tease is another one that I think is used by the less sure writer. You show us the exciting thing and then say 36 hours later. That is because you're not confident in your story or in your storytelling ability. In this case, it's all part of the way the story plays out. We see the newspaper that says Batman slain ? As viewers, we are also supposed to be wondering if Batman is indeed dead. The story doesn't work if we know from the jump that he's not. And so we have to have it from Sid's perspective, which means we have to have flashbacks and a little bit of a fractured tease. It's good.
I think it's fantastic.
I'm actually going to write this episode down as ways to do those things well. Because my pet peeve with those things is not that they exist. It's that they are almost universally poorly executed.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair criticism. I tend to like flashbacks, but when I think about it, and we've had this conversation before, it's usually when they're done right.
When they're done right.
Right. So,
it's the preponderance of bad examples that makes me skeptical of them right out of the gate. You need to prove to me that this deserves to be done this way.
And of course, Batman the Animated Series knocks it out of the park.
They know what they're doing.
That way.
Yeah.
And I just love that they do it with such a fun concept. Like, hey, what if this guy just gets in way over his head and air quotes accidentally kills Batman? It's a fluke. He's not trying to do it. The guy's name is Sid the Squid, which, by the way, I freaking love.
Which he mostly gives to himself?
Yes.
I mean, he has one friend make the joke, But then he's like, yeah, Sid the Squid. That's what's going to happen. I mean, it is the low rent hood version of fetch isn't going to happen.
Yes.
Except it does, because he accidentally kills Batman.
He accidentally kills Batman. Yeah, everything about this episode is lots of fun. I love that we have this character who's in over his head, but he also relishes in the
he likes
the
having
fame, the attention.
until it becomes too much.
Well,
right?
until he realizes he actually has to live up to the legend, because he's out there, he's got the cow hanging on his chair, he's celebrating. Everyone's like, yeah, Sid the Squid, he's so awesome. And then some guy, of course,
just a random biker.
Toxic masculinity, man. Oh, you mean that guy killed the biggest vigilante in Gotham? Well, I want to kill that guy, so I killed the guy who killed the biggest vigilante in Gotham. And then also the problem you get with Rupert Thorne later, he's like, whoa, I've heard the stories. I don't buy this sap story. You're trying to take me out. Because of course, a powerful mob boss is going to be hyper paranoid that everyone's trying to knock him off so that they can take over the crime in Gotham.
Rupert Thorne's place in the story is probably my best example of how the flashbacks and stuff work so well with the present day story. Because if it were a lazier piece, him telling the story to Rupert Thorne would be just that. It would be the excuse for him to tell the story to somebody. But because it circles around to, at the halfway mark, you should be wondering, why is Rupert Thorne entertaining this nonsense?
Exactly.
And the answer is, he's not. Not really.
He doesn't buy it.
He doesn't buy it. You may not even realize that. You're just going to accept the fact that Sid's got to tell the story to somebody. Might as well be Rupert Thorne. And then by the end, it's like, nope, that's actually part of the story.
Exactly.
It's not only part of the story, it's part of the story that Batman is in that we're not seeing.
Exactly. Batman was using Sid the Squid the whole time to track him to who was actually moving the drugs. It's fantastic storytelling.
It's very well done.
It works on a lot of levels.
Hey, this is like a real opportunity to do kind of a missing all-stars welcome back episode, though, too. Because we haven't seen Rupert Thorne in forever.
No, I actually made note of that myself. I was like, hey, welcome back, Rupert Thorne. Where have you been? We've covered a lot of episodes, but none of them have included that character.
And I don't think we've skipped them. I think they haven't been organized crime episodes, right? So we haven't needed Rupert Thorne as much. This is a really good use for him. He's still been working. He's still been doing organized crime.
Yep.
His fingers are still in the pies, and he is a smart, capable adversary, because watch him play Sid to figure out what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretending to buy the story just so he can kill him and knock him off later.
Also, welcome back Renee Montoya.
Yeah, exactly. Nice little cameo there. Renee Montoya, shocked at the news of the death of the Batman, which is also crazy. The way even Bullock reacts, you're like, wow.
We do figure out Bullock's upset because Gordon's upset.
Yes.
But I love that he doesn't know what to do with it. Bullock's like, I can't really, Renee, could you go
take care of
I
Gordon?
don't know how to what? And she's like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, and because, of course, Harley Quinzel walks in and cons Bullock because Bullock's very kind of dumb and sometimes
Sure.
he's pretty dumb. And by the way, this is actually the first fun fact. This is the first time they've referenced Harley Quinn's full name, Dr. Harleen Quinzel.
I thought it was. And the reason that I noticed it is, if I were a betting man, it wasn't originally supposed to be her real name.
Nope.
I think it's a gag.
I think it's a gag that stuck.
And then they just decided, yeah, what else are we going to call her? Let's make that her real name. Because Bullock should recognize the real name Harleen Quinzel.
Exactly.
It only makes sense if it's her poking fun at him in this episode. But then
she even makes a wink. Well, it's a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, because he's even seen her out of her costume before back in the what was it, the Joker's Favor.
That's right.
So it's funny when he's like, have I seen you somewhere before? This is very loose. I don't know. You could call it sloppy. I think it's very loose allusion to a continuity.
No, this is a place where they decided to own a bit of a thing. I've always thought that Harley's real name was a little on the nose, honestly. Yeah. I mean, even for Batman comics where dudes are named Strange and they turn out to be bad guys, or Edward Nygma and they turn out to be Riddlers. Even for Batman, Harleen Quinzel's pretty on the nose. Maybe don't make her the Joker's doctor. Yeah. He might be a little too into it, right?
A little too into it.
But it doesn't matter because it lets us have a lot of really good Harley jokes. Oh, Harley has a lot of good jokes in this episode.
All of the Joker Harley stuff in this episode is
top notch,
fantastic.
Because I've got a list of Harley jokes and a list of Joker jokes.
Yes,
like they do a really good job. The small subpoena Yes,
that was fantastic.
Is beautiful.
And Alba also how did they get on television? But anyway, children's television.
Well, yeah, that's one. That is one syllable away from too far.
It's like one of those things. I'm like, they just say what I think they said they didn't, but they basically they wanted me to think that.
I laughed out loud when Joker sicks the hyenas
on
she says, "I'll get the mop." I laughed out loud. That is such a good. She's great.
Which, by the way, hey, isn't that crazy? The Joker fed one of his henchmen to laughing.
He does show up later, that henchman, so he does not get eaten by the hyenas.
Okay, all right.
Murphy is back because Joker says, "Any questions, Murphy?" "No, boss. No questions." So he learned his lesson.
Yeah, learned his lesson. Sure.
Okay, my favorite Harley moment. Playing taps on the kazoo.
Oh no! Okay, yeah, yes. The entire sequence was great. Playing Amazing Grace on the kazoo was fantastic.
You're right. Joker's eulogy, the kick me sign, all of that was so good that almost anything other than the kazoo would have been too little.
Yeah, no,
right?
exactly.
But no, she's
that
like,
was it.
No,
it was the
boom.
cherry on top, and she
good.
owns it. But I mean, yeah, the eulogy is great. I really think this underlines the heart of what drives the Joker's relationship with Batman. He says, without Batman, crime has no punchline.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this is actually the moment when Mark Hamill has gone on the record and saying, this is where I knew I understood the character, just connected deeply, like his drive and his motivations, as nonsensical as they seem a lot of the time. He said that was the eulogy. When I read the eulogy, that's when I said, this is the Joker. I get what makes him tick now.
That makes sense because the Joker very much needs Batman and is upset that is not reciprocated on any level. No. Like Batman would be fine without Joker.
Oh yeah, exactly. But the Joker needs Batman. He said, I like how he says, "For it was Batman that made me the happy soul I am today." Ha 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 ha.
Now I will say, I feel like he also walked right out of that funeral and started planning another heist. It wasn't like he was going to go straight.
He was taking a moment. He cried. He shed a tear. He shed a tear when Amazing Grace was being played on the kazoo.
It's true. I just want to point out, it wasn't like Batman's gone, Joker's going to go straight. Well, that was fun. Back to work.
Well, but I will say right before that he did like basically give up a crime. They committed a crime, and he was sitting around waiting for Batman to show up, and he's like, wait, he's not showing up. He's late. What's going on? I guess I'll just surrender. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
He doesn't care in that moment.
Yeah.
That scheme was specifically to flush Batman out.
Right,
if it's not going to do it, forget about it. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a great thing.
Well, and again, I think this goes back to a thing we've talked about a lot, even on Joker's Wild. The Joker's ego.
Oh yeah,
is out of control, and we talked about this in the Harley and Ivy episode too. He thinks he's the only person who deserves to kill Batman, and anyone else, it's an accident. It's a coincidence. There's no way they could have done it.
Good enough.
No.
It's not good enough.
Nope.
We even saw this in Joker's favor from the other direction when Charlie says, "It won't be you and Batman in some big showdown. It's just you dead in an alley because of Charlie."
Oh, my God. So
and he's
great.
like, "No, Batman saved me." I mean, so yeah, it's definitely all about his ego. And funny enough, it's sort of about Sid's ego too.
Oh yeah, so that was an interesting turn, because it wasn't until that moment when Batman sends him to prison that I realized what was driving Sid. And it was, he does like the attention. He wants to be one of the guys.
Mm-hmm. He always just wanted to be one of the guys.
Exactly. He didn't really want to be the guy who knocked out Batman. He just wanted to be respected. And it wasn't until we actually see him being marched across as the guy who made a fool out of the Joker that I was like, oh, that's all he really wanted. He didn't really, the crime, didn't care about the money and the drugs. He just wanted to be one of the cool kids, basically.
And really, now prison is probably the only place he's remotely safe. As a guy who made the Joker look like a fool.
Oh yeah, yeah. If there was to be a follow-up episode with this character, I'm sure it would be the Joker trying to get vengeance on him somehow.
Yep. And I mean, I know it's been 25 years, but I'm here for that sequel. Probably would have been a better return for Bruce Timm than, I don't know, Harley and
Batman.
Yeah, cut
Harley,
all that. I'm not going to say it. I mean it, but I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see Sid, a big shot in the big house. And I try not to think about it like an episode of Oz. I try to consider it like a happy ending for Sid.
Yeah. Prison's great. It's great, Pete. Nothing wrong could possibly happen. It's a happily ever after in prison.
In Blackgate Prison in Gotham, and you're the guy who made the Joker look stupid. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
You're good.
Let's just never revisit the story again to see what catastrophe possibly could have happened. first and foremost, I think this is an absolutely essential watch. This is one of the, if nothing else, even though I think the rest of it's fantastic, but the Joker eulogy, that entire sequence is, I would argue, critical Batman Joker stuff. Even with the Harley, the Joker stuff, all of that, it's
well done. It's so well done, you can't skip it.
Exactly.
Like this isn't really a show that has that kind of big ongoing continuity. So when we say things to skip, it's all based on quality. Show up for this one. 100% A++ quality for what little we see of Batman, for the characterization of Sid. The Harley and Joker stuff is amazing. Rupert Thorne is great. Bullock at a loss. Like, all these character beats are phenomenal.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. So to go along with that, if people love this episode so much like you and I did, what else should they read, watch, or play?
I have two. I have a very serious one and a much less serious one. So my serious one is an Alfred Hitchcock offering, The Man Who Knew Too Much.
I love that movie.
Great movie, and really comes at it from the direction of somebody who just gets in a situation that immediately puts them in over their head. He handles it a little better than Sid does.
I mean, Alfred Hitchcock, man, master of suspense, great character writing in that film, and then the suspense is just too much. I love it. It's great.
Now, my less serious offering is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this piece?
Vaguely. Elaborate, please.
So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Hamlet's friends from college. And at one point, Hamlet's stepfather sends them to help Hamlet deal with his troubles.
Oh, I'm sure that goes so well.
Well, he figures out that's what they're up to, and the next thing that we hear is that they're on their way someplace and bad things are going to happen to them. Hamlet slips out of their plan pretty easily because he's very clever and they are not. Now, there's a movie, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which is what happens if we just follow Rosencrantz and Guildenstern around. So the plot of Hamlet is kind of going on in their background.
I love that. Yeah, that's fantastic.
They are also very much in over their heads because they are not the stars of the actual thing that's going on, but they have no idea, and you just get to follow them along, and it's a really fun watch.
I love that when you take B-list or C-list characters in a story, like your third stringer characters, they're more or less background characters, and you see, hey, what does this whole thing look like from your perspective?
From their perspective,
yeah, it's great. It's great.
And the beauty of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is it doesn't really look like much because they are not invested in it. It's just going on while they're doing their own thing. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So I have a couple, and I'm taking the angle of whenever an arch nemesis disappears, or exploring the nature of arch rivalry nemesis. First, may I throw at you the DreamWorks animated film Megamind.
Oh, that's a very good one.
That's a fun movie. That's an underrated movie. And I'll say this as a guy who has generally most of my life been like Pixar over DreamWorks. DreamWorks has got some hits every now and then, and this is one of them because it really interrogates the nature of arch rivalries. I mean, of course, it's a family film, and the Megamind ends up being a hero. As in Batman, if Joker was the protagonist, then of course he would not redeem himself in any way. But I like that idea. It's more or less like, what if the evil villain won and then got bored, and then all of a sudden he realized that he needed his arch nemesis in his life in order to feel fulfilled. In the same way, I know you're right. Joker probably was going to plan his next heist, but it wouldn't have been as fun for him.
No, that's legit. It wouldn't have been as fun for him. And that's part of the Megamind issue, but also he just starts to try to rise to the occasion anyway.
Yes.
And
well, because
he gets out differently.
It does. Well, because he's tired of being a villain. He's like, I've conquered it, so I'm bored. So what can I try that I haven't done? Well, I can try being the hero. And
Let's give it a shot.
Works out differently.
Addendum to that I'm sure you haven't read, but since you're now telling me of your love for Megamind, you should check out the comic Edison Rex.
Edison Rex? Have not read that one.
It did exist in digital spaces from Monkey Brain, but also now it's being released as a webcomic, like a page 2 days a week, I think, something like that. It's edisonrex.com, and it's basically what if Lex Luthor won.
Yeah, and that's okay. And no, you just touched on it.
It is a very similar take to Megamind, but a little more serious. Think if Megamind is family friendly, this would be like the young adult approach. I think you would enjoy it a lot.
I think I would too, because I didn't want to say Lex Luthor and Superman for Megamind because we were talking about Batman, but that's actually when I watched the film the first time, I was like, this is Smallville, but when they're adults, like where you got this like weird bromance going on between the the rival and the nemesis, and it's like, what if the Lex Luthor character won? Yeah, I think that's fantastic. My second recommendation is Unbreakable, which is one of M. Night Shyamalan's early films that Joshua and I, at some point in the future, are going to have a conversation about whether it's actually a comic book film or not, or a superhero film.
Yeah.
Superhero film, yes.
Yeah, it isn't.
And it
gets close.
I beg to differ, but I think there's a lot of good conversation to be had here. But the thing I like about it is whether or not it is a superhero film, it pays homage to comic book rivalries, and oftentimes that you have a villainous character who has been searching his whole life for a hero to give him purpose.
That is one of the most interesting takes going on in that movie that doesn't happen very much in superhero comics. You often have the villain show up after the hero or in response to the hero. And like we were just saying, the Joker needs Batman. Batman does not need the Joker. But imagine if the Joker were around first and so needed Batman that he somehow engineered the situation.
He decided to become a criminal and commit crime because he believes
he needed a nemesis.
He needed a nemesis because he knows that the nemesis,
it's a really interesting pathology we haven't seen.
Interesting because at the end of the day, and I guess I'm sort of spoiling the movie, but at the end of the day,
it's been a minute. The statute of limitations is up.
That's actually, it was like 98 or whatever. So the fact of the matter is that Mr. Glass needs the personal fulfillment of having an arch nemesis, one, but he also does because he actually believes in his own twisted reality that he has to create the hero that will make the world better because he doesn't exist now. It's weird. But it's an interesting idea that the film tackles, and I'm really excited to see explored in the sequel class whenever that comes out. Fingers crossed.
The closest you get is the Professor Zoom relationship with the Flash, where Professor Zoom is from the future and he's come to the past to be a villain to sharpen the iron of the Flash. Right. That's the closest you get. But even then, you're dealing with a guy who already knows the Flash exists and comes back to be his nemesis. This is somebody who is like building his nemesis from the ground up, but has to do it without the nemesis realizing.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
It is a really interesting film.
Well, that about wraps up this animated discussion. Caleb, where can people go to continue the conversation with you?
Well, Joshua, you can always find me on Twitter talking about film, television, video games, and all sorts of other pop culture goodness at C Masters Talk. That's letter C Masters Talk. I'm also the editor-in-chief and film critic at the Cinematropolis, and we publish these in-depth essays on all types of different films, oftentimes including science fiction and superhero films, all the stuff you'd want to read about. And you can find all of these articles at thecinematropolis.com. Joshua, what about you?
I'm also most active on Twitter, where you can find me easily enough at Joshua Unruh. And remember that an animated discussion is a Pulp Diction Productions program and is 100% supported by listeners like you. To find out how you can keep this and our other shows in production, check out patreon.com/pulpdictionproductions.
All right, Joshua. Well, I can't wait to take a look at our next episode, Season 1, Episode 52, Mudslide.
Until next time, we'll see you back here. Same bat time, same bat channel.